Before I say anything else, if you're currently in a situation, if something has happened to you, or you're sitting with something you've never told anyone, I need you to know that this episode was made for you. The Safe Helpline number is 1-877-995-5247. It's confidential, it's available 24/7. Save it before you go any further. Now, let me tell you about a night I almost lost more than my safety. This isn't just a podcast, it's a movement. Real stories, zero fluff, battle tested wisdom, straight from the mess to the dead plates. If you're tired of silence, the politicking, and leadership cliches, you're in the right place. Welcome to CultureKeeper. Welcome to CultureKeeper, the podcast that bridges the gap between junior sailors and senior leaders. I'm Jessica Hardemon. So season 2 starts here, not with something easy, with something real. Because leadership isn't only about what you do in the passageway or on the mess decks. It's about what you do in the dark when the mission no longer protects you. So, I was new to the Navy, first ship, first deployment, and I landed in what felt like exactly what everyone hopes for when they report to a command, a tight-knit work center. We worked out together, we ate together, we laughed together, we were deployed, making the best of it, and that place felt like family. There was a third class, senior to me, but not by much. We stood watch together on the flight deck, fire truck watches, right? The kind where it's just you and the other person for hours, and you either learn to talk or you learn to sit in comfortable silence. We did both. He was a nice enough guy, happily married, kids, and on deployment, which is more than I can say for some, he kept his head right. No boat booze, no extracurricular activity out in town, that kind of guy. When we had gotten back from deployment, we found out that his wife had left him, took the kids, and then came back when he was on duty and took everything else, including the stuff he'd bought for her overseas. He was devastated. And like any good shipmates, we rallied. We took turns. We hung out at his place. We spent the night so he wouldn't have to be alone. I'd grown up a tomboy in Long Beach, and one of my closest friends in the neighborhood is little Dave. I'd spent the night at friends' houses, been one of the crew, been family. The kind of family where sleeping over didn't mean anything except that nobody wanted to go home yet. That's how I was raised. Men were not something to be feared, and trust was something you gave until someone took it. I didn't know then what that blind trust was going to cost me. So fast forward a few months, he's doing better, getting back to himself. My boyfriend and I, we were on the outs. He was on separation leave out of state, and I'm doing what the Navy called me to do. We had pulled into a port away from home, late afternoon, and most of our group had already headed out into town. I'm finishing up some work. He comes by the work center to grab something, and he tells me he'll wait for me and we can walk out together and catch up with the rest of the crew. Cool. We leave the ship. We start walking down this long street. There's cars in both directions, and the sidewalk seems to go on forever. And then ahead of us are these really, really tall trees, these bushes, like hanging completely over the sidewalk, almost creating a tunnel. And you could hear the cars passing, but they couldn't see you, and you couldn't see them. We walk in, still talking, still laughing. And then I feel his hands grab me, lips forcing themselves onto mine, fingers pulling out my clothes. I froze for a second, just a second. I froze. And then I fought back. Every limb I had, hitting, kicking, scratching as hard as I could, while his hands are grabbing my ass, forcing fingers down the front of my pants, taking what he decided he was entitled to without ever once asking my permission. I got him off of me and I ran. I don't even remember the run back. I just know I made it. I know I didn't eat dinner that night because that's where we were going when we left the ship. And I know that I didn't leave the ship again. And the next morning, I went to work like nothing happened. So did he. He never acknowledged it, never apologized. We never spoke again. And I never said a word. And I know what some of you just felt hearing that, right? The shock, the disbelief, maybe even the anger, because you know how this story goes. You've lived it, or you've watched someone else live it, or you've sat next to someone in a berthing or a mess deck and never knew. Stay with me. Because what happened in that tunnel, as bad as it was, wasn't the hardest part. The hardest part came after. Not because I wasn't hurt, not because I wasn't angry, not because some part of me didn't know that what he did was wrong, but because I didn't have a single word for what had just happened to me. I didn't really know what SAPR was. Maybe I heard it at Command and Doc. I didn't know what a victim's advocate was or where to find one. The chaplain wasn't someone I'd been pointed towards, and my leadership, I didn't trust that they gave a damn enough about me, like not in the way that this moment required. So I sat with it in the berthing, on the mess deck, in the work center, where he still showed up every day, alone. And then I did what a lot of survivors do. I turned the investigation on myself. Was it something that I wore? Something I said? Something I did that made him think my consent was optional? I withdrew. I analyzed my behavior. I needed to know what I needed to stop doing so I would never end up in that situation like that again. All I had been was myself. Chill, funny, laid back, the kind of friend who would show up and have your back, crack a joke when you needed it, talk a little shit when the moment called for it. That was my crime. Being authentically, comfortably, trustingly me. And somewhere in that work center, in that man's mind, that became an invitation. It wasn't. It was never an invitation. But nobody told me that then. So I had to figure it out myself. And while I was figuring it out, I ground out on my quals because that was all I had. I took the advancement exam for OS, made OS 3, got out of that shop, and never looked back. So I need to stop here for a second, because if you're feeling something right now, I want you to name it. Maybe it's anger. Good. Hold on to that. Because what I just described, a young woman turning the investigation on herself, auditing her own behavior, shrinking herself down to avoid becoming a target again, that is not weakness. That is what silence does to people. That is what happens when the institution offers no language, no advocate, no door to walk through. She didn't fail. The system failed her. And she ground her quals anyway. That's not a small thing. That's everything. So here's what came out of that season. Not in spite of what happened, but forged by it. Came out of that season with a bit more caution with my trust. I still am a bit more cautious. I developed a mentality that I carry to this day, that I don't put anything past anyone. Anyone is capable of doing anything. That's not paranoia. That's wisdom bought at a price. I didn't choose to pay. And I refuse to pretend that I don't own it. I became more aware of my surroundings, of who was in my range, of who I let myself get comfortable around, who'd I drink around, who'd I walk down a long street with at dusk in a foreign port. That awareness, it didn't make me afraid. It made me sharper. But here's the thing that took longer to learn. The thing that might be the most important thing I say today. I almost let that experience teach me that I was the problem. I almost let it turn me into someone smaller, quieter, more careful about taking up space, more apologetic about being myself. I spent years operating that way, not consciously, but the pattern was there. The shrinking, the editing, the measuring. And over time, paired with mentorship and experience and some hard-won peace, I realized something. It's harder to be anyone else but who I am authentically. And I will not apologize for being me. This experience, this one, is part of why I show up the way I do in all places and spaces, unapologetically, because there were too many times I allowed myself to shrink. And I'm done shrinking. So are you. That's not just my story anymore. The moment I decided to stop shrinking, it became a standard for every sailor who has been made to feel small by something that was never their fault. And standards have to be spoken out loud. They have to be handed to someone. So I'm handing this one directly to 3 people. And you already know which one you are. To the survivor, I see you. I don't need to know your name, your rate, or your rank to know that you've been carrying something that was never yours to carry alone. Maybe it happened last week. Maybe it happened 10 years ago, and you've never said it out loud to a single soul. Maybe what I described in that tunnel sounded so familiar, it took your breath away. Because it was your tunnel too. Different street, different port, different person, same silence after. I need you to hear this. You are not alone. There is nothing wrong with you. And if you choose to keep fighting, and I mean really fighting, grinding on your quals, making rank, showing up every single day, even when it costs you something, you can make it all the way to the top of this Navy. I am the proof. A girl from Long Beach, California, first ship, first deployment, who sat alone in her berthing with something she didn't have words for, became a command master chief. That is not an accident. That is about a one day at a time. Your future is still wide open. Don't let one night or one person close it. To the bystander, the person who didn't do anything wrong, who wasn't there that night, who would never, I need you to understand something. What happened to me didn't happen at the hands of a stranger in an alley. It happened at the hands of someone I knew, someone I had shown up for, someone I had trusted with my presence, my time, my friendship. Sexual assault doesn't always come from the outside. Sometimes it comes from inside the work center, inside the squad, inside the circle of people you've eaten with, worked out with, stood watch with. So check on your people, not a generic, hey, you good in passing, a real check. Because that sailor who seems a little off, a little quieter, a little more withdrawn than usual, that slight shift might be more than a bad day. It might be everything. You don't have to have all the answers. You just have to be the person who noticed, the person who asked, the person who said, I see you and I'm not going anywhere. That's what changes the outcome, not the program, not the brief, you. To the leader, this one's for you. Sexual assault touches all of us, every rank, every rate, every command. Some people carry the scars visibly. Most don't. Most have learned, the way I learned, to show up the next morning and perform normal while something inside them is anything but. You will never know every story in your division, but you need to lead like every story is possible. That means building a division where people believe, really believe, that if something happened to them, they could tell you. Not because the policy says they can, because you've shown them they can. Every dismissive comment you let slide builds a wall. Every time you make it about optics instead of people, you build a wall. Every time a sailor looks at you and decides the risk of telling you is greater than the cost of carrying it alone, that wall just got taller. Sexual assault doesn't just affect the person it happened to. It affects your division's trust, your retention, your culture, your readiness. Some of your best sailors are carrying scars you've never seen. They don't need you to fix what happened. They need to know you're the kind of leader who would have shown up for them if they had told you. Be that leader before someone needs it, not after. So I'm going to leave you with this. The night in that tunnel could have taken more than my safety. It could have taken my voice. It could have taken my belief in myself. It could have taken my future. It didn't. Not because I was exceptional, but because I was stubborn and I was grinding. And somewhere deep down, I decided that what he did was not going to be the last word on who I was. That decision is available to you too. Whatever happened, however long ago, however alone you've been with it, you are still here. And still here is enough to build on. Keep the culture. Lead on. Culture isn't just kept. It's shaped. Every sailor, every day. Keep the culture. Lead on.